Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I've just come back from 1 to 2 year break from sewing, where I thought I never ever would want to sew again. And I have to admit it, my love of sewing isn't what it was when I first started this channel, but I am back at the machine. So in this video, I want to share 10 tips with you that are going to help you go from not wanting to sew to being back at the machine and kind of enjoying it and building up that momentum again. So the first thing is that when you first start having that inkling that you want to sew again, don't rush it. Take time to think about it. What I found when I first got those inklings of maybe I want to sew, one side of the brain was like, yeah, you want to sew, the other side can't be bothered to get the sewing machine out, to get the fabric, to think of a pattern, to draft the pattern or to trace the pattern, to do twirls. You know, there's so much involved to get to the point of sewing that it can become very overwhelming. So I didn't force that. I just let the thought ruminate in my head over time, and the thought got stronger and stronger, and therefore my motivation to sew became stronger. Oh, so hot here today. Got sweat dripping off of me. So the next tip is that while you are ruminating, while you're gathering these thoughts in your head, which can take a few days or it can take a month or 2 months, perhaps do a little bit of research at your own leisure. Don't put any pressure on yourself, but maybe have a look through Pinterest, have a look on other sites online, maybe join some sewing groups in Facebook, which is what I did. The Sewing Bee started. I started watching that, doing stuff, gathering ideas. That will really help you to think about what you want to sew. And as these thoughts come in and out of your mind, you're going to formulate. Some will stay, some will stick, and you'll start to feel more confident in what you want to do. So the next tip for getting your sojo back is that when you do decide on a pattern to sew, make it quick and make it easy. Now, I didn't really do this for myself. This top which I'm wearing now, which you saw me talk about in a previous video, I didn't really do that. I just found a pattern that I really wanted to sew and didn't think about whether it's easy, but I took it slowly over months. But the fact is that if you're getting back into sewing, you're going to want that instant gratification, and doing something quick and easy is going to increase your motivation for doing more projects in the future. So my next tip is that once you sit down at the sewing machine and you start to sew, don't put yourself under any pressure in order to get a garment done immediately. Even if it's that quick and easy project, which should only take an experienced person an hour or 2 hours to make, don't put yourself under any pressure to do that, because you've got all the time in the world, and the less you do, in a way, the more you're going to want to do. I know when I used to work in an office, I would dream all day about sewing, and I really just wanted to do nothing else. And that's because I couldn't do it. Whatever you do, do not put yourself under pressure. There's this culture on YouTube of, I made all these garments, which is down to how YouTube itself works, the algorithm, and that's what gets clicked. But in real life, we just should not be rushing our garments. There is really something to be said for slow sewing, and that's my own ethos moving forward. So the next tip is one I should have said a bit earlier on actually, but that is to measure yourself really well. There is going to be nothing more off-putting than if you decide to sew, you spend ages deciding on a pattern, you eventually start sewing, and then you've sewn it in the wrong size because you've had a break from sewing. You're no longer in that same body shape as you was when you were sewing before. I know that's happened to me. I've lost about 2 stone since I was sewing, and so I actually ended up going down a size because I did a twirl. I could potentially have gone down 2 sizes, and had I measured myself, because I did it, then I would have known this. Then with your fresh measurements, you can go into that pattern, you can choose the right size, and that's going to get you started on a really positive note, because when you try that garment on, it's going to fit you like a glove. So another tip, and this is a really good sewing tip for if you do patterns, And that is to, before you actually sew from a pattern, read through the instructions really slowly at your leisure, and then think about all the steps that it's asking you to do. Maybe it might be that you don't want to do it in the same order that the pattern suggests, and that's perfectly fine in many cases. Maybe write some notes about all the different steps, because you don't have to do it all in one day, as we spoke about, and you can break the pattern down in steps to make it easier to sew over a longer period of time. The next tip is to commit to doing a little bit every day. It might be that one day you just finished a garment and you didn't pick up another pattern, and then the weeks and the months got longer and longer, and suddenly you thought, why am I not sewing anymore? Well, if when you approach sewing again, you make an effort to do a little bit every day or a little bit every other day, or set some kind of system in place that's going to work for you, that's going to increase your chances that it's going to become a habit again for you. And actually, if you're doing a little bit each day, it's going to increase your motivation, isn't it? I know it does mine. The more I do it, the more I want to do it. As I've spoken about, I took slowly for myself, and as soon as this was finished, before I even put the buttons on, I was like, right, what pattern can I do next? Because taking it slow and enjoying the process really does bring your sojo back. The next step I have for you is don't miss steps or take shortcuts. We've all done it, haven't we? We've like ignored the fact that we should be stay stitching or finishing our seams, or maybe just pressing our clothes as we go, or the garment as we go. We've all missed those steps before, but they can cause more problems, and that can give you more challenges, and that can reduce the chances that you want to continue to sew. So once you are sewing, make sure you do the important steps, because not only is it going to make a better sewing experience for you, but it is also going to mean that you are going to want to sew more in the future. So the next tip is that when you are going through this sewing process, you will make alterations. It might be when you're tracing off the pattern, it might be when you've done a toile, it might actually be during the sewing process. Make a note of those alterations, because when you make that garment again, it's going to come in really, really handy. I've done it before where I just have ignored that, or not ignored it, but just not written it down, and then I've gone to make it again, and I'm literally starting from scratch again, because I don't know what I did last time. I've got the memory of an old lady here. And my final tip for you, and the most important one, do not miss this one. Only sew when you are feeling happy. The last thing you need to do when you're sad is to get to the sewing machine, because number one, you're not going to concentrate. Number two, you're going to make mistakes. Number three, it's going to leave a bad feeling with you, and it will reduce the chances that you want to go and sew again. Do it when you're happy. When you're happy, you're energized, you're relaxed, you're not going to make mistakes. You're going to really enjoy the process, and you're going to get through your garment a little bit quicker as well. So my message to you is that if I can come back from complete exhaustion from sewing and everything around that, around YouTube, then you can do these tips and come back to, I know what I'm talking about here. So I do have other videos on getting your sojo back. I will link that right there for you, and I will catch you in the very next one. Bye for now.